Greetings and welcome into the latest live stream. My name is Kerry Holzman. Today I've got 3 computers I've got to build, and unfortunately one of the parts isn't here for one of the computers, but we can build it without it because I've got to keep moving. I'm like a shark, got to keep moving. And first of all, let me say hello to everybody in the chat. It looks like we've got 134 people in there watching. So hello to Luke Evans and Robert Descamps and Anders Jorgensen and Super 360. Special thanks out to my moderators. Douglas Biggers is in there. You'll see his name is blue, and he is making sure everybody stays in line and is polite and kind to one another. Jeff Foster says hello. Tommy Gaming HD says hello from England. Pro Gamer, Gary McGraw, Gaming Game Borislav, The Disturbed 12010, Carlos Estrella, Lord Ben Decour, Caleb Nestor, Dino Manfred, Chris Bowen, Carlos Estrella, I already said, John S., Frango Dolo, Robert Krebs says hello from Ohio, John Stanton says hello from New York, Mike Jones, Ray B., Andrew Marcelli, Richard Barrow, Brett Kennedy, Andrew Mather, Hyper Joe says hello, Malcolm Crabb, Ray Vandison, Steve B., John Lloyd, RDBA Gaming, Stuart Botteville, or Botvile, Fulioski, Marty Noob, Andrew Williams, Angry Dad 1969, Andy W386, Moesha Ludak, Stony M. All right, so I can't go through all 167 names, or that's all we're going to do all day. And I think people have other things they'd like to see, like, I don't know, how about a computer build? That sounds like a good idea to me, too. All right, so let me just move my stuff. Let's move this keyboard out of the way. I use that to communicate with you guys in the chat. You guys see this portal gun? You see this portal gun? People want to know if it works. Well, I've got it in demo mode right now, so it isn't going to open a portal, but just to show you that that's the demo mode. Later on, maybe tomorrow or over the weekend, I will actually make it active, take the safety off, and show you how it works. I had an idea for tomorrow. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Yesterday I was getting a little frustrated, and this happens when I take time for Q&A from the audience on a live broadcast, and that is people just join the show or they're not paying attention, they leave the room, and they come back and they repetitively ask the same questions over and over and over again. And I've been trying to get some ideas on how to deal with that, whether we just stop the questions, stop the live stream, or do the live stream and ignore the comments in the chat. And my thought was, what if we fight fire with fire? What if we do drunk tech support? So hear me out on this. What that means is when people ask the questions, I'll drink, and the answers will be extraordinarily bad, hopefully funny and sarcastic, and the advice that I give should not be followed. I'll have a big disclaimer, do not follow any of the advice. This is for humor. What do you guys think of that idea? I want to get some feedback on that. A lot of people liking the idea. Anybody opposed to that idea? Anybody think that's sending the wrong message? That's what I want to know. Does anybody think it's sending the wrong message? It does seem like I've only got one naysayer in here so far. obviously you can't please everybody, so I just want to go with what the majority, if it's going to get me views and people are going to enjoy it and understand it's just for fun, there's no educational value to it whatsoever. It'll be something different for the channel, a little variety. And of course, if it's something you're not interested in, you certainly don't have to participate. I just don't want it to be me and 4 people. I'm hoping to have a nice audience. But it looks like it's going to be, the majority do like the idea. There'll be text across the screen. I can put a message on the screen. I know there's a button here somewhere I can do it. I don't have it set up yet, but I can put a message that'll permanently be on the screen that the tech support is for comedy purposes. It's not to be followed under any circumstances. It's for entertainment only. So I think that may be, and that'll be on the screen the entire time. You know, don't try this at home, something along those lines that'll be very clear that it's strictly entertainment. It is not educational. Do a drunk PC build. All right, you send me the parts. I'm sure that, you know, I don't drink but maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and even then, it's not heavily. It's very social, but I don't get stupid drunk. So I'm sure I could build a computer without any problem. A blindfold build? I don't think I could do it. You know, when it comes to getting everything lined up, vision is pretty important when building a computer to get your cables plugged into the right place. And because of electrostatic discharge, it's really just not a good idea to be having your fingers all over everything, especially the CPU when you're putting your thermal compound, or even if the thermal compound's pre-applied, putting the heat sink on. You know, to be completely blindfolded, you know, I could do it in a dark room with a flashlight, but there wouldn't be much for you guys to see. So the idea here is to just experiment around with what attracts the viewers, to try and just have a little fun, right? I mean, in my experience, a party with 5 people is not as fun as a party with 40 people. So the idea is that we all get together and have a good time, and that's really all it's about. And then we'll see. Let's get started on these. I don't know if there'll be time for Q&A today. I have 3 of these to do. Let's see if we can get through all 3 of them. In the notes below this video, you will see the list of parts for 2 of the systems are identical and 1 is slightly different. 2 of the systems basically have 32 gigs of RAM with a 500 gig NVMe SSD. And then the odd one out is going to have half of RAM and half of the SSD, right? So it's going to be 16 gigs of RAM, 250 gig SSD, NVMe. But otherwise, they're exactly identical. There's only 6 parts to these systems. They should be pretty easy. We've got power supply, case, and then we've got motherboard, CPU, RAM, and SSD. That's it. We're going to put Windows 7 Pro on these, as I explained in yesterday's live stream. Those of you that caught yesterday's live stream, that video will be taken down and edited into one video because it got split because of the blue screens. I don't know if I'm going to have any blue screens today. I've made a few little minor changes, and I'm kind of, while I'm doing a live stream, I'm also diagnosing my streaming situation here. And the only way to test and resolve for intermittent problems is to just use the machine as you normally do and just evaluate it over time to determine if any changes you made impacted it negatively or positively. So that's part of the experiment today, is to just see if the changes I made are going to work. So far, we're off to a good start. I don't want to jinx it, although I do think being superstitious is bad luck. Think about that. Let's get started with the build. I've only got 1 case out at a time. They're all going to be 200Rs. There's not enough room on my counter for me to get all these cases out. Let's put the instructions over there because that's about what they're good for. And I'm going to put some of these parts away because it gets in the way of me working. So let's get the parts we don't need yet. Let's put these over here in the background. I'm getting too many computer parts piling up here. I'll tell you what. Let's take the RAM and one of the drives, and let's put that over here as well. And we don't need 2 of these motherboards. And we don't need 2 of these processors just yet. All right, so let's just get that out of the way. Now I have a more reasonable working area here, and I do recommend when you build a computer that you keep the same thing in mind. Let me get my Lazy Susan. That's the rotating table. These are available on Amazon. Just look up the word Lazy Susan and pay attention to the diameter. I had a hard time finding one this wide. If you guys followed my channel, you've seen me struggle with these smaller ones where the case doesn't quite sit on it. One of my viewers sent me this Robert Corrigan. And that's the best thing any viewer's ever sent me. I just think that's great. That's awesome. Some folks have asked me to put together a wish list on Amazon for parts that I'm seeking for making these videos better. And I'm going to do that, but I'm going to warn you right now, there's nothing under $60. There's some green screen stuff, a couple of different cameras, memory cards under $60 just. There's a 4-port capture card, which I'm very interested in, but that's $900. There's a wireless microphone setup where I can use 2 transmitters to 1 receiver, so when I interview people live, right now I only have the guest wear the mic, and so my audio gets picked up by the guest mic. It doesn't sound good. That's like $400. Nothing's cheap. So that's why if you want to contribute to the channel, that's what that money goes to. And just so you guys know, and if somebody, you know, is a lot more financially better off than I am and wants to go through the, you know, send any of that stuff, you'll certainly see it in use in the video. And this is just for people who asked. So I'll have a link to that in the video notes. After this is live and YouTube has processed it, then I can go in and I can edit the video notes accordingly. All right. Now this computer is going to be used in a tax business, and they're going to be opening up, you know, 30, 40, 50 tabs. They're going to have huge spreadsheets, some proprietary software for accounting. And this computer is going to the owner of the company. I think he's got multiple locations or multiple offices. He doesn't just have 1 office. So that's why 2 of these are identical, I think, because I think he wants the same computer regardless of which office he's in. I think that's the logic. Let's get started. Let's start by taking the panels off. I'm going to do this one a little bit different today, just because I feel like mixing it up. There we go. Got our thumb screws out, and I'm actually going to put this away for right now. And the thumb screws can go back here so I don't lose them. Let me take the panels off. And I'll put the panels just down here off to the side. You want to arrange them in such a way that you don't accidentally knock them over. You could easily scratch or dent them. Here in the case, we've got our box of hardware. This is all the screws and stuff that we need for mounting all the parts. Every case comes with the mounting hardware. So let's just go ahead and get that dumped out. Yeah, that's empty. They gave us some nylon zip ties. That's always nice. and the screws. We'll put those over there. So when I said I'm going to do things a little differently, usually I start with installing the power supply and storage devices. Because the only storage device is on the motherboard, there's really nothing to case prep except the power supply. So we're going to do it backwards. And also it emphasizes that there's no one order that you must follow to build a computer. So we're going to start with the motherboard here. So I've got the CPU, which I need to open the box. I need my razor blade. There we go. And the NVMe, I need to cut that box open. The RAM I don't need to cut open. Let's go ahead and take the board out of the box. Got SATA cables. We're not going to use any SATA cables on this build. There's our board. Take that and throw it out. This is our motherboard I/O shield. We'll need that momentarily. And then we've got what is essentially, this is the documentation GIGABYTE gives you with the motherboard. Yeah, how useful do you think this is going to be? Here's everything you need to know about your complicated motherboard. And that's why it goes over there. And of course we've got our driver disk, so we're going to set that in there. We're going to build on top of the box. The box is a natural static-free environment. Usually they tape these static bags, these anti-static bags closed, and sure enough they did. Now we're done with the knife and we can put that away. I'm going to touch the case, make sure I'm on the same level to prevent any electrostatic discharge, and then I'm going to hold the motherboard by the edges so I'm not touching any metal, just in case there's any in case there's any electrostatic charge in me, it won't dissipate to anything on the board. And let's get rid of that. We're done with that. We don't need these. Those are the SATA cables. They won't be used on this build. And then we'll take care of the I/O shield and the power supply when we get to that point. Now, let me give you a close-up because you're too far away to see the detail of what I'm about to do. Now, you're going to hopefully not get a little motion sick here as the one-man band, which is me, is all camera operator, production assistant, producer, on-air talent, sound engineer, lighting, director, script writer. Yeah. Nothing ghetto about that at all. Here we go. Let's see. That looks pretty good. Does that look nice and clear to you guys? Can you see everything okay? Move this back a little bit. You can see the make and model of the board. You see all the ports we have up here. We're going to be using built-in, everything's backwards for me. Built-in video, we got VGA, DVI, and HDMI up there. Lots of USBs. We got 4 USB 3s and 2 USB 2s. And then all those little colored areas over here, this is all audio. Generally, when you hook up your speakers, which is mostly all anybody hooks up, it's green. And people are like, oh, where do my speakers go? It usually goes into green. And let me take a quick look. Before I begin this, I want to make sure we're doing okay here on the stream. I'm going to just pause here a minute. I want to make sure that everything is current. I'll tell you what happens though, when the live stream buffers, it's still recording. At least it seems that way on when I play it back later. And yeah, it looks like we're okay now. So that's good. I think what I need to do, I really need to do this with 2 monitors. That's what I need for me to monitor what's going on with what I'm sending out and then what is being sent out. So I just need to remember to periodically check. Part of the fun of being my own producer. So you haven't missed anything. If it buffered for you, don't worry about it. And like I said, when the video is completed and processed by YouTube, there's no buffering in the completed video. So if you miss anything, you'll always be able to go back and watch again. So what we're going to do now I think what I want to start with is installing the solid state drive, because that's just like my favorite thing ever. And here we've got the 960 EVO NVMe. This is a solid state drive. You can use it with a hard drive or without a hard drive. The computer will see it as a hard drive. Installing Windows 7 may be a little bit tricky on this computer because Windows 7 was invented long before this was. So Windows 7 may need some help in recognizing it, which may be a future video to cover that topic. I'm not a big believer in installing an older operating system on newer hardware because it sort of defeats the purpose. You're not going to fully be able to take advantage of the performance like you would with Windows 10. However, it's your money, so I'm not going to tell you how to build your computer as far as that goes. And we'll cross that bridge. It's something that that I may cover in another live stream. I don't think there's going to be enough time today, but we'll see. We'll see. So let me just turn this around. So right here is the socket for the M.2 drive, and then these little holes are mounting points for the M.2 drive of different lengths. The most common is called 2280, and that's what this is. This is an M.2. Its length is what's called 2280, and it has, this is 500 gigs. Mechanical hard drive will transfer data about 130 megabytes a second. Solid state drive will transfer data about 550 megabytes per second. And an NVMe M.2 drive is what you see here, will transfer data at about 2,500 megabytes per second. Now the computer doesn't care what kind of storage device you want to use. It's all about performance, and performance is all about how much money you want to spend, just like in car racing. So I've just removed the top lid, and you'll see there's two indentations. That's so you can pick up what I call the gum drive, because this is the same size and shape as a stick of Wrigley's gum, only it doesn't taste as good. That's the drive. This little part is about $217 for this little part, and worth every penny in my opinion. And we can put that in the slot. It's going to go in an angle like this, and then you push it forward. And it usually has a little spring to it. This one's not doing that for some reason. You know what? I need to take it out anyway, because we just wiggle it and pull it, take it out, set it there. I'm going to take this screw out. Again, it's very important you use magnetized screwdrivers so that you don't drop or lose screws. There's no danger. The danger is in not using a magnetized screwdriver. Let's go ahead and put this back in. Seat it all the way in so you can't see the connector. We're going to push it down. Make sure that we've got the right mounting point, which of course we do. And this does not have to be tight. You just want to turn the screw until it stops. That locks that into position. Storage is installed. And is there any instructions in here? I don't even see anything in this. It's just looking in this box. I don't see any documentation. Wait a minute, does this come out? Ah, there's the document. The centerpiece came out. So that's our documentation right there. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put all this stuff back together and put it back in the box. We're done with that part. The next thing I can install, I don't want to put the memory in yet because it kind of interferes with my access to this CPU area here. So let's go ahead and get our CPU out of the box here. We've got the Core i7. This is the i7 7700. Because there's no K on it, it comes with a cooler, and we're going to use that cooler. And ignore all of the people on the internet that think that the stock cooler is junk. Those people do not work as technicians for a living, and they are not responsible for your build. They are not going to help you pay for your build, and they're not going to help you install many of these third-party coolers that are difficult to install. Don't listen to those people unless you have plans for overclocking. If you have no plans for overclocking, or if you don't know what overclocking is, you're just going to use the fan that comes with it. And chances are, long after their computers bit the dust, yours is still going to keep working because you stuck with what the manufacturer provided. We've already got thermal compound applied. We're going to take this out, being very careful not to touch that thermal compound, and we're just going to set that down. And then we're going to take the CPU out, which involves this little plastic, or not plastic, the cardboard is kind of folded under here like a pizza box. We'll just pop that out. There we go. And then here's our CPU. I forgot how much this part is. $300, $350, something like that. So just these two parts, just this part here and this part here, over $500. Totally worth it though. Now here you'll see there's a little, there's a plastic piece, tab. You can get a thumbnail under there and just lift up on that. And then there are two little holes here, and that's for you to get your fingers around and hold it by the edges. Hold it by the edges. Doesn't matter which edges, just hold it by the edges. Avoid touching the bottom and avoid touching the top. We don't want to get any oil from our skin on there. We want to keep it as clean as possible so that when we apply the heat sink, the thermal compound will be as effective as it can possibly be. This little plastic cover, this covers 1,151 delicate little pins. On AMD CPUs and on older Intel CPUs, the pins are on the bottom of the CPU. Intel has reversed that and put the pins on the socket. Those pins are extraordinarily delicate. That's why this cover is there. We're going to pull back the lever and lift it up. The CPU only goes in one direction. There's a little cut or a notch here and a notch here. They look pretty closely aligned, but they're not. The socket also has the notches. There's also a little gold arrow down here on this corner, and there's a little white arrow down here on this corner. So that's two ways you know how to line it up. And the third way you line it up is you look at the writing on the CPU, make sure it faces the writing on the board. All the writing is going towards you. So we're going to keep that pattern. And then I'm going to put the CPU in. I like to put in one side first like this. I just gently line it up and start to lower it and then let it go as far as I can lower it. And then what I'll do is I'll just grab the edges of it here and make sure that it's fully seated. And it is. Now I'm going to take the lid and lower it back down. And when I close this lever, and this lever now is going to have a lot of tension on it. When I close this lever, this plastic lid should just pop up on its own. Now it's going to have a lot more tension than it had when you opened it. So you're going to have to use a little bit of muscle to push down and lock it back in position. Take this little plastic cover, keep it. If your motherboard's bad or you ever have to send the motherboard in for repair and you take that CPU out, you need to cover those pins up. If you don't, the motherboard will not honor, the motherboard manufacturer will not honor your warranty. So I'm going to just set that down. Finally, we have the RAM to install. Over on this board here, you'll see we've got 4 RAM sockets. We want to make sure all the retention levers are in the open position. You'll see when these are in the open position on this side, they interfere with any graphics card or card that would be extended beyond that point. That's why in a lot of motherboards today, this side does not open. So if you buy a motherboard and you can't get these to open, it's because they don't open on yours. On this one, they do. Now, your motherboard manual is going to specify this. And of course, the motherboard manual, well, it's not exactly a riveting page turner, does have some useful information in it, such as which sockets do we use first? We've got two RAM modules here, right? But we've got 4 sockets. Now, the RAM's going to work in either the gray or the black, but it's going to work most efficiently when you put it in the right ones. So which 2 do we use and which 2 do we leave empty? Normally, with motherboards, you use DDR sockets 1 and 2 first. And Gigabyte has labeled the one closest to you as number 1, then the black one is number 3, and then the next one here is number 2, and then this one is number 4. That means they want you to use 1 and 2 first, and 3 and 4 second. And you can verify this in your motherboard manual, but in English terms, they want us to use these gray sockets first. They want to use this one and this one. So let's do that now. I'm going to open up the RAM. There we go. And when you get the RAM out of the packaging, you want to bend the packaging. Don't bend the RAM. So bend the packaging. Grab either module, doesn't matter which one. You'll see there's a notch in this RAM, and there is a notch here in the memory socket. It's not going to line up this way. If you look really closely, you'll see that that notch does not line up with that notch. That tells you you need to turn this around. Something I see a lot of YouTube builders do is they go and install the module closest to the camera first, and then the viewers can't see the next one going in. So just for the sake, it doesn't really matter which one you start with, but for the sake of the viewer, I'm going to start with the one closest to me. And there's a little track, and you line up the RAM module into the track. You don't seat it all the way down. You just make sure that it's lined up in the track. I'm going to use my thumbs, and I'm going to push down one side and then the other side. And you're going to hear them click each time. Ready? Here we go. That's it. That module's in place. We're going to repeat this process with the remaining module. And once again, rotate it in the proper direction, line up with the track. Should go in nice and easy. Look, I'm not using any force at all. And then thumbs, one side, other side. Doesn't matter which side you start with, they're seated. With that out of the way, I can put the heatsink on. The heatsink already has thermal compound applied. And I want to look at the heatsink. I want to take the cable, which is all wrapped up for shipping purposes. I want to unwrap the cable. There we go. And I see that the cable is coming out of this side of the power supply of the heatsink. And where we're going to plug it in is on this white. You notice how that's white right here, and this is white? That's because those two things go together. I don't want to have my cable wrapped around. I don't want my cable going over. I don't want the cable in any way to have a possibility of getting stuck into my fan. So that means I'm going to rotate this. It'll work as a cooler in any direction, but it's more efficient and cleaner looking to ensure that my cable is going to run the shortest distance possible and will not interfere ever with my fan blades. Now that we've got that seated, make sure that these little towers that stick up are in the opposite direction of the arrow. This is how it should come out of the box. If you ever need to take the heatsink off, then you turn it in the direction of the arrow and you pull it up. And before it will lock down again, you have to turn it back to the opposite direction of the arrow. I've seen people make a very rookie mistake thinking, oh, that arrow wants me to turn it. Only when you're trying to remove it. When you're trying to install it, the arrows must be in the opposite direction of where they're pointing. Now you can start with any corner using your thumb and push down. Then go to the opposite corner and push down. And then you've just got two left. It doesn't matter because it's always going to be opposites. That's installed the heatsink. Now we just have to give it power, which is going to go right here. There's grooves on that. It only goes on one way. I'm going to grab one of these wire ties while this is out of the box. The nylon zip tie, not wire tie. I'm going to fold up that cable right now before I put this in the motherboard, before I put the motherboard into the case, because I have lots of room to work on it outside of the case, and I can make this cabling look nice and tidy, and that's one less thing I have to do later. Then I can cut that free. There we go. All right, now let me put the camera back where it was. We're all going to go for a little ride. Here we go. Now I don't know if I'm going to cut my head off. Let's see. I have to, all I can do is set the camera. Well, I was close. I'm close. I just got to bring it back a little bit more. Bring it back just a little bit. There we go. Let's try that. I think that'll work. Let's see. Does it work? Yeah, I can see myself now. And let's see, I don't need that box anymore. Instructions, instructions, garbage, 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 garbage. Oh, this I'm gonna throw away. Okay. Oh, that's garbage. This is that plastic lid. We want to keep that. Oh, that's garbage. All right. That's our motherboard prepped. At this point, all that's left to build the computer is installing the power supply and installing the motherboard. And cabling is going to be really simple. Nothing needs power except the motherboard. We're not running power to a video card or a DVD or CD drive because we don't have one, we don't need it. We're not running power to a hard drive. We are literally going to run 2 power cables. They both go to the motherboard. And we hook up the front port umbilicals. That's how easy it is to build a $1,000 rocket ship of a computer. And by the way, if we threw a 1080, 1070, 1060 graphics card in this, or the Radeon equivalent, you'd have a great gaming machine, by the way. Just saying. Probably a little overkill, to be honest, for most gaming machines. Most gaming machines don't need an NVMe drive, 32 gigs of RAM, or an i7. You could get by with a regular hard drive or solid state drive, 8 gigs of RAM and a Core i5 or Ryzen 5, something like that, that's equivalent. So you're right there. Pretty much the builds are all identical. So I guess I'm going to start now by putting the motherboard I/O shield into the case. That's going to go right back here. I've got the I/O shield here. Let's go ahead and get this out of its plastic baggie. I wish they made these universally black instead of silver, because it's going to, most cases these days are all black. At least they're not beige like they used to be. Let me just step around here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's bring this over here. Just get that over there. Let's put this over here. We want the keyboard and mouse holes towards the top, speaker holes towards the bottom. I mentioned both of these because some cases don't have the keyboard hole, but some cases, some motherboards, and all motherboards have the audio. So the audio always goes on the bottom unless you bought a case where everything's upside down. They do sell all kinds of cases, but this is the most common format that cases are in. You just push that in with your fingers. It's a friction fit. Push in each corner, and after you get all the corners pushed in, double check them because they like to pop out as you put others in. And then, as I realized yesterday, we're going to have to use some motherboard standoffs that came with our case. We've got a bag that has 2 standoffs here. And when I look on the board, I just want to line up the standoffs with where the mounting holes are. So looking here in the case, I need to put a standoff here and here. Yesterday on the build, I had to put one up here. This one's a little bit different. It goes down below. All these other standoffs are already in the right place. We won't use the ones down here at the edges, all the way across the bottom and side. They're for a bigger motherboard, and they don't come out anyway, so leave those alone. You might need them in the future whenever you upgrade or repair the computer. Hopefully you'll never need to repair it. But sooner or later, you might want to upgrade it. And if you're buying a different case other than Corsair, you want to check to see if these are pre-installed. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. You need to check their position, because if I had a standoff any place else in this area, it would hit the back of the board. I would never see it, and it would short the board out, cause an electrical short circuit, and potentially smoke my components. So it's a very serious problem that is extraordinarily easy to avoid by simply paying attention. So let me go ahead and add this one right here. And I'll add this standoff right here. I'm just getting them started because the threads on this case are a little bit rough. Like I'm having a hard time turning it with my fingers. So I have a tool. It's a 5mm socket. And it's the only thing I use this tool for. It's a dedicated tool. Even though the bits can be changed out, I only use a 5mm bit. It ratchets. As you can see, it ratchets. And we're just going to bring that down and tighten it. Wait till it stops, and then just give it just a little tiny torque. Don't over torque it, or you'll strip the threads out and it'll never tighten ever again. Just like that. So we're good to go. Thank you. I wish I had a nurse. I'd say thank you for the ratchet, nurse. There's a joke in there somewhere. You do the work. All right. If anybody's, I see, I just glanced over, someone says poor video quality. That's not me, that's you. I'm broadcasting in 1080, so if you're not seeing 1080, you got to hit the little gear button next to your picture. Learn how to use YouTube. All right, let's go down and set the board down like this. And I can grab the board now by the heatsink. This is a safe way to handle the board, and I don't have to worry about any electrostatic discharge. You don't see me wearing an electrostatic strap. I've talked enough about that till I'm blue in the face. So before I become a Smurf, let me go ahead and put the board in, line up the ports first. Let me get this out of your vision here. We want to make sure when I put this board in, it's going to go in on an angle like this. These ports are going to be angled down. And I'm going to make sure that the fan cable here on the case has a fan on it. It's getting in my way. I'm going to line up the ports with the holes and push the board forward towards you and then straight down. And I'm struggling a little bit. This table's a little high up for me. There it is. It's a little awkward. Normally, if I'm not filming, I wouldn't be in this position. So it's a little more difficult. Try it sometime. Turn on your camera and try and show everybody how to do this. It's good fun, good times. Now, normally I would go ahead and start securing the motherboard down into position, but you won't be able to see anything that I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this case up very gently. Man, if that board falls down, I'm going to be angry because there's nothing holding the board in right now. Very gentle, easy, easy. So I want you guys to see. And in the bags of screws that came with the case, we've got these little short screws that have coarse threads. And those are the ones on Corsair cases that you use to install any hard disk drives and mount your motherboard. And I'm going to grab my screwdriver and step around. And let's see if I can't give you a little bit of a close-up here. Let's see. Well, I'm going to go this way. All right. Pressing my luck the longer I wait to put these screws in. We're going to put a screw here, here, to go on top. One goes in the middle. There's no hole in the case for this mounting point, so that mounting point will have to be empty. Nothing we can do about it. I'm going to blame GIGABYTE for coming up with a non-standard design there. Doesn't matter where you start, just pick a mounting point. There, I don't have to worry about the motherboard falling out. So there's 1, 2. One you may not be able to see. It's right up against the I/O shield. The post that was holding the board in place keeping it lined up is right here, so we can't put a screw there. This mounting point has no part, there's no part on the back of the motherboard tray of the Corsair cases, or of any case that I've ever worked on, that will have a mounting point for that. So we can leave that one empty because we don't have a choice. And then there's just two others. Again, they're really hard to see for the camera, but one is right up here, which apparently is not lined up correctly. So I'm going to need to kind of push this forward a little bit. And it's not going to move because I've torqued these down too tight. So let me just loosen them up just a little bit. There we go. And now I should be able to push the board forward. And there it is. That's why I have such a long extension. The RAM is really hard to get around. You need a long extension or a long screwdriver to get in there. There we go. Now let me just retighten the screws I had to loosen. This screwdriver automatically stops when it hits a preset torque setting. It's got a clutch on it. That's what I like about this screwdriver. If you're building a computer for the first time, please do not use an electric screwdriver. Please turn the screws with your hand. You could very easily strip something out and not even realize it. Okay. How we doing, everybody? Still with me? We're all following along? Now, let me just take the rest of these screws and put them away because you may need them in the future. We won't need them anymore with this particular build, but you may buy some other hardware you want to upgrade or repair. It could be in 3 weeks or 3 years or 10 years. And these just aren't the standard screws you're going to go to a hardware store and find. I imagine you can find them online, but then you're going to postpone whatever it is you're trying to do. And everybody's impatient and wants everything yesterday, and you're not going to be a happy camper. So take the time now to keep them all together, put them back in the bag, and then take all your spare parts, put them in the empty motherboard box. Just grab all your spare parts, throw them in there, plastic tab, all your documentation, instruction, warranty information, all of it can go in your motherboard box. Do yourself a favor, write the date and the year somewhere on your motherboard box or your computer, because you're going to forget when you built it. Was it a year ago? Has it been 5 years already? I'll give you an example. You can go to my channel and you can look at a review I did for an Intel NUC. That Intel NUC is going to be 5 years old. I can't believe it's been 5 years already. Now, in my case, I've got the videos to go back and look at, but most people don't. And so whether you take a marker and write inside of the case, which I don't recommend, get a label maker, label the inside or label the outside, or write it on the box and then put the box somewhere where you can find it. You'll thank me later. And here's what we got so far. There's our build. Now let's go ahead and put the power supply in. Let me step back around. Power supply, I really like these EVGA power supplies. I think it's $36 or $40. It's got a 3-year warranty. It's 430 watts, which is more power than we're going to need. And it's taped closed. I got to go back over here, get my knife. That's not a knife. That's a knife. All right, let's go ahead and get that open. Cool. Inside the box, documentation. Power supply, power cable. I always like to keep the power cable in the box, the motherboard box, when I deliver it to the customer. So when I test systems, I don't use this cable. I keep it tied up nice and neat so the customer sees it's brand new. So that'll go in there, in there. And then EVGA hides the screws to the power supply inside the box right here. And that can go over there. We can use the screws that came with the case to mount the power supply, but they're not as heavy duty as these screws. So if your power supply comes with screws, and they should, you should use them unless they're the wrong color. Some power supplies come with these silver screws. In that case, I would use the color match screws that come with the case. There's a little, on the bottom of a lot of power supplies, they put a little protective cover here on the bottom. Heaven forbid their logo gets scratched. The logo, by the way, that no one's ever going to see because this is going to face down. But that just peels off. Like a bad sunburn. Power supply is going to go in the down position. We want the cables as close to the back of the motherboard tray as possible for the cleanest wire management. We're going to set the power supply down in here. There's a little metal tab that's going to go underneath that tab. I'm doing this kind of blind here, trying to show you guys what I'm doing. Now that I've got it pushed in that way, I'm going to push it towards me. And that way it's lined up on the back. Let me grab these 4 screws and let's secure that power supply into position. Garbage out of the way. Okay. 1 screw in each corner. Doesn't matter which corner you start with. Don't tighten them down. You may need to wiggle the power supply around in order to get all of the holes to line up. Ignore this corner. You got to go just about 1 inch over. And down here, use the bottom one. Now I can torque it down. And it's a pretty light torque setting, and on the power supply, because it's so heavy, I like to just really crank down on these screws. I don't want that power supply going anywhere. These are going to be shipped to California by car, so I'm not worried about it breaking loose. But if you do it the same way all the time, you should never have any exceptions or any problems. Take the wire tie off of the power supply here. We don't want any wire ties in the system at all. So let's go ahead and remove the wire tie. You want to replace all wire ties with nylon zip ties. These have wire in them, and the wire does get brittle over time. It will break. It will start floating around inside your case because it's metal. It can short something out over time. Could be running great for years, and then all of a sudden one day smoke comes out. What happened? Take the wire tie off of here. Take that out. We're going to drop that down there. These are all our front port umbilicals. This is our front audio, front USB, and power switches and LEDs. Kind of hung up on something. What happened? There it is. Don't force anything. You see, as soon as I met resistance, I stopped. It's doing it again. There, it's kind of hung up. When you meet resistance, be diplomatic. Don't be brute force. All right. There we go. I'm not going to install this front fan. I'm going to take the wire tie off and use a nylon zip tie later. I'm not worried about it right now. For our power, let's go ahead and hook power to the board. I need the biggest connector we've got. Just look for the biggest one. Untangle them. Now's your time to untangle your cables. There's the largest one I've got. It's going to go up there, but I want to hide it, so we're going to run it back through the hole here. We'll just pull that through. Pull it up through here. Make sure that the 4-pin additional connector is attached. This one I have to it doesn't self-attach, you have to hold it in place. The clip goes to the outside edge of the board, so we want to turn it this direction. And line it up. It only goes on one way, and then push it forward. You see me wiggle and push at the same time, and then give it a light tug, If it falls off, you didn't put it on right. Don't yank it really hard. Just see if it's going to fall off. It's not falling off. It's on there. Next, look for the connector on your power supply that's specified for CPU. This one has 2 of them. They're 4 pins each. That's because some motherboards only need 4. It doesn't matter which of the 4. It needs one or the other. Whichever one you happen to use is the right one. This motherboard needs all 8. So again, we're going to push these together, and rather than just plug them in, that goes right up here. And by the way, when somebody builds a computer for the very first time, this is one of the cables that quite often people forget. You've got, well, I'm in a hurry trying to make the video because I've got 2 more after this to do. When you build yours, you should not be in any hurry. You should be enjoying your build. Because when you're done and the thing turns on and it works, you're going to want to build another one. So really, enjoy your build, please. Once again, I want to hide this cable. We're going to go right through here, bring that around, and right up into this corner. This can be a tight fit on some cases, and this one, it just went right in. And then we'll grab that cable, pull it straight through. So the connector we want is right up here in the upper left corner. That's where it is on most motherboards. And the ridge on it, where the clip is going to hook onto, is on the outside edge. And that's the way it should always be, ASUS. But sometimes ASUS likes to put the connector on the inside edge, which makes it much more difficult to disconnect later in the future for any upgrades or repairs. That's why this is a gigabit board. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to just turn that, push these 2 together. The clip is facing me, and then I'm going to turn it so the clip is facing up, line it up with the holes. It's very dark in a tight, cramped area, so even if I had a camera person, this would be very difficult to film. So the best I can do is describe to you what I'm doing, and I've got other videos where I did close-ups of this on different angles, and it can be a little bit of a struggle, but take your time, enjoy your build, line it up, and then push it on. You should hear it click. There it is. And then we're just going to pull that slack back. Now look how clean that looks. Look at that. Now let's get our front port umbilicals hooked up. Let's start with front port audio. Audio is real simple. It's this square connector. It says HD audio right on it, or just, yeah, this one says HD audio. Sometimes it may say just audio. And I want to make sure that I'm untangled right now. It's one thing to do cable management. It's another thing to have to go back and unplug cables when you're done to do your cable management. So this is half of your cable management, is to keep the cables untangled during the build process. Like this one's going to get wire tight over there. I think the way I'm going to do this, we'll go behind. Should I go behind these? No, I don't want to go behind those. I want to go behind this one. And then I'm going to go into this little gap that's right here. If you don't have that little gap, then you want to go into the next hole over. And I want to try and hide that cable as much as possible, because on most motherboards, the audio connector is in this bottom left corner. So I'm going to grab that cable, pull it through, and there's a little, one of the holes here is plugged, and that's so it won't plug in anywhere else on the motherboard, and it only goes in one direction. Again, don't force anything. It should plug in nice and easy. This connector right here says audio right inside of it. And the missing tab, or the one that's going to be blocked, is on the bottom, closest to the edge of the case, which means I'm going to rotate it with the HD audio words down using this case and this motherboard. It varies. If you use a different motherboard, it may go a different direction. If you use a different case, it may go a different direction. It may even be labeled something else that says something audio or just audio. So I want to specify that, well, all builds are identical. There are little differences like that to pay attention to. That hooks our front port audio up, lickety split. Done. USB 3.0 is a really funky connector. It's got a little notch on it. We're going to run that right underneath this one. And that's going to go right here where it says USB 3. It's often next to the big power connector. Some more modern motherboards will have 2 of these. It doesn't matter if you have 2, which one you want to use. They'll work equally well. Or use them both if you have a card reader or some other USB 3.0 device. It just pushes on. Oftentimes you don't hear it click. It's really wonky and disappointing that nothing really secures that into position. And then finally, we have our switch, power switch, reset switch, hard drive LED, and power LED. And I'm going to run those. Right through here, like so. And they're going to connect down on this block. We're going to start with the hard drive LED. So I'm just going to grab one of these cables and read what it says on the connector. That's the power switch. Don't want it yet. This one is reset switch. I don't want that one yet. That's the power. It's always the last one. Why is that? There we go. This is our hard drive LED. The back side of the connector on the Corsair cases has a small arrow that's engraved into the plastic. It's extraordinarily difficult to see, and I've covered close-ups of this with macro lenses in other videos. It takes hours to get all those close-up shots and then edit them in. So what I like about live video is I can just do this and explain it to you. But for those of you who need clearer explanation, please look at some of my non-live build videos, you know, the ones where I'm dead. This one goes on the bottom row of pins. The very first 2 pins at the edge with the HDD writing facing down. First 2 pins on the bottom, horizontally, not vertically. This is laying flat. Above that, whoops, just pulled on it. Put that back on. If you put it on upside down, the LED won't work. It won't hurt anything. It won't light up ever. So you'll have to take it out and turn it around. Here, we'll do the reset switch since that's what I grabbed. So here we've got the reset switch. Again, now's a good time to untangle the cables. Reset switch has no positive or negative. It doesn't matter. You can't get it upside down. Put it on the next 2 pins right beside the hard drive LED. Now, pretty much every standard micro ATX and ATX motherboard I've ever worked on has this particular layout in the order that I'm showing you. But I want to make a disclaimer here that if you're building with something different, refer to your motherboard manual to ensure that you're putting these front port connectors, wires onto the right connectors. And then this is our power LED. It's split with you see a plus and a minus. You want the plus on your left and the minus on your right with the words facing up. I like the words facing up. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up. So we got plus and minus, and that's going to go directly over the hard drive LED. And remember, the hard drive LED positive cable is also on the left. So it's very consistent that way. We have one final switch, and that's our power switch, and that goes just above the reset switch, right next to your power LED. Now we're ready to turn it on and see if it works. We've built it. That's it. We're done. Of course, we have an operating system to install. We've got cable management to do, and hopefully it works. So at this point, before we go any further, this is a good time to do what's called a power on self-test. Now to do the power on self-test or post, you only want to plug in power, keyboard and mouse, and your monitor, nothing else. So I'm going to grab the monitor here from the streaming computer. Let me grab it, and let's see. I need to unplug it from the back of the streaming computer. There we go. And I'll turn it around. This is all live, so you know nothing has been edited. There's no magic involved. And let's turn it around so you can see. Bumping into my case panels here with my power cable. You know what? That's making me nervous. Let me move these. I'm going to put them back here. That would really upset me if the panels fell over and dented or scratched on my customer's new computer. And rather than risk it, I'm just not going to do that. Then I'm going to grab the keyboard and mouse off of the streamer. This is just a wireless dongle. I'm going to plug it in the back here onto one of the USB ports. I'm going to take the DVI cable from the back of my monitor, and I'm going to plug that here on the back of the motherboard. I need a power cable, which I have down here on the floor. Power supply switch here on the back is in the off position. I'm going to go ahead and plug my power cable in and then flip the switch to the on position. I'm going to turn this thing on and I should see power lights. I should see this fan spin. Oh, I got to hook up the rear case fan, but I can do that in a minute. And I want to see something happen here. I want to see some BIOS up, something appear. So let me step around because I can't really see. Well, I see a blinking cursor up here. There it is. Reboot and select proper boot device. That happens because it's a brand new hard drive. It has no partition, it has no operating system. There's nothing for the system to boot to. Let me go ahead and shut it back off. And I'm just going to grab this fan cable, take the wire tie off of it. And the motherboard will have a place for me to plug this in. Sometimes it'll have 2 or 3 places. Usually there's one here in this corner. I don't see one. There's one here up by the power connector for the motherboard, and there's one down here. That's going to make the cable management a little bit sloppy, but that's all right. We'll live. Let's just go ahead and plug it in right there. Now, turn it back on. I should see both fans spin. Both fins span. They're spinning. There's my login information right there. Power light is on. Let me check reset. Let me push reset. Does reset work? Reset works. Let me check my BIOS. Let me do that now. I'm a big fan of updating the BIOS that everybody's so afraid to do. And let's see if there's a new BIOS available that we can put on there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to reset, and then I'm going to hit delete a bunch of times. Just keep hitting delete over and over and over and over and over. And I need my BIOS info here. Here we go. We're at BIOS version F6. So here's what I'm going to do. I got to go in the other room. I'm going to go to my desktop computer. I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to type, listen to what I'm saying, okay? I'm going to type GIGABYTE space B250M-D3H. That's the model of the motherboard. Space BIOS. And one of the first links, if it's not the first one, should be taking me to GIGABYTE's homepage for this motherboard. In the upper right, not way up at the top, just a little below the top to the right, you'll see an option for support. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to click for BIOS. And I'm going to see if there's a BIOS with a bigger number than 6. If there is, I'm going to download it. It's going to be a zip file. I'm going to extract the contents of that zip file. And I'm going to put the BIOS file. The zip file contains a batch file, an executable file, and the BIOS file. All I need is the BIOS file. That's the biggest file. So the other 2 you don't need to copy over. I'm going to copy it over onto a flash drive that's formatted in FAT32. The flash drive preferably needs to be 8 gigs or smaller. I think you can do 16. You cannot do anything bigger than 16, but it's got to be FAT32. So I'm going to do that right now, and you're not going to be able to see me because I have to go to the other room, and I don't have a roaming cameraman. So let's go. Here we are. I'm at my desktop. And I'm going to type in GIGABYTE B250M Shoot, I forgot the number. Was it D3H? I think it's D3H. BIOS. And in my case, the very first link that appears takes me to GIGABYTE. And at the very top of the GIGABYTE page, you'll see it says Products, Gaming, Enterprise Support. We don't want that support. That's why I want to specify this. You've got to look further down, about 2 inches down, and it says Key Features, Specification, and Support. I don't know why GIGABYTE does this. The support button at the top of the page is for GIGABYTE support in general, and the support button that's lower on the product page is support for that specific product only. So we're going to click on that, and I've got Windows 10 64-bit, that's my OS, and then I drop down, I see BIOS available. Latest is F7, we've got F6, so this is newer. I'm going to download the link from America because it's faster. And I'm going to go to my download folder that I just saved that file in. And I'm going to extract that zip file. And I need a flash drive. So I'm going to plug a flash drive into my computer. And it's just taking a minute for the computer to recognize the flash drive. The name of the file I don't want the autoexec bat file that was in the zip, and I don't want efiflash.exe. I don't need either of those. I want the big file. It's called b250md3h.f7, and I want to copy that to the flash drive. I'm using a blank flash drive. That way there's no confusion when I'm doing my BIOS update over finding the darn file or accidentally picking the wrong file. Although the computer shouldn't let you flash the BIOS anyway with the wrong file. It just makes the whole process take longer, and you're scratching your head trying to solve a problem that you could have avoided. So that's why I always keep the flash drive empty, with the exception of just the BIOS update file. I'm going to turn this computer back off. Sorry, I got the flash drive cap in my mouth. Let me set it down. Let's plug the flash drive in back here. Any USB port should work fine. Now when I turn the computer on, at least with GIGABYTE boards, I should be able to hit the end button on the keyboard instead of delete. I'm going to keep pressing end over and over again. End. And it takes me to the BIOS flash page, which I showed yesterday, and I'm going to show you guys again. We're going to zoom in on this, because I want you to look real closely at it so you can follow along if you have a similar board. If you're going to build like me, then you can follow step by step. Come on. This tripod is meant to be locked, so it doesn't have an easy I don't know, gimbal on it or something. It's meant to be locked in position, so it's hard to maneuver it. Then I'm gonna sneak down here like this. You'll see up here it says B250MD3H is our BIOS version. You know what? Let me cut some lights, because I think you guys are still gonna have it's gonna be a hard time seeing this. Let me cut some lights in here. Let's go, you too. All right, you should see that a lot better now. So this tells us the model of the board, B250MD3H, BIOS version is F6, and the date that BIOS was released was 4/24/2017. You'll see it says Update BIOS in yellow. That means it's pre-selected, so all we have to do is hit Enter. And we want to look at, is my mouse going to move? I got to turn my mouse on. We want what happened? So I've just clicked EFI. I don't know what that is, but it's not flashing anything. It's just something is locked up and I don't know why. So I'm going to just hit reset. We're going to do this over. Where's the end button? Here it is. So I hit end on my keyboard. There we go. Update the BIOS. Patriot memory. I don't know why it's not showing it. And then when I click on EFI, it freezes up. B250M D3H. I'm sure that's what I downloaded. Hit reset one more time. I'm going to hit end. Back at the BIOS. File. Can I go to File? No, I can either update or save the BIOS. I'm just switching back and forth between those. It's not letting me do anything up here. I can't select anything here. When I go to Update BIOS, it should automatically show me the BIOS file, and it's not. So I'm going to turn the computer off, and I'm going to move the flash drive out of the USB 3 port and put it into a USB 2 port, thinking maybe that's where it's getting confused. It shouldn't, but when computers do things that don't make any sense, you sort of have to humor them. Let's go back to hitting end. Update BIOS. No, same thing. Interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a different flash drive. It may not like this flash drive, and I'm going to copy the BIOS file again. So bear with while I grab another flash drive here. This is probably the worst you can expect. It's not dangerous to the machine. We're not doing anything potentially harmful because we have to wait for some compatibility issue with the flash drive. It hasn't even loaded the flash file yet, so it hasn't begun the flash process. You don't have to have a heart attack and think, oh, I just ruined my system. You can if you want to, but it's completely irrelevant and moot. So what I've done is I've just put the file onto a different flash drive, and then I want to eject that flash drive. There we go. Let's try a different flash drive. Gotta love a live stream. All right, so turn the computer back off. Get that cap out of my mouth. And let's try this one. Here we go. Turn this back on. Gonna press end on the keyboard. Update the BIOS, hit enter. Yeah, so it didn't like the flash drive. See, all I did was change the flash drive. I'm gonna click on that file, and I'm gonna hit enter. And there it is, updating the BIOS now. Now at this point, it's really important you don't have any power outages, you don't interfere with this update. Do not hit the reset button, do not cut power. It's going to take about 2 minutes. You need to just chill out, leave it alone. Don't touch your keyboard, don't touch your mouse, don't touch nothing. Let it work. It's just going to take a moment. So let's just sit by and watch. You would think Gigabyte would know that the full text of what they're trying to put on the screen doesn't appear in their BIOS. But just be patient. Don't worry that you can't read it. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's clearly at like 70%. You just can't see all the text. That's a Gigabyte issue. It has nothing to do with your monitor. It has nothing to do with you. They've just put too many words in an area there that it can't display them all. There we go. Now it's going to auto reboot. Now when it reboots, you're going to see the fans shut off. You may even see all the lights go out. It actually, some motherboards like this one shut the computer off. And just right now it's turned everything back on all by itself. Give it a minute. Sometimes they shut off twice. Be patient. Well, this one only needed once. Again, there's still no bootable device installed, so it's got nothing to boot to. And we're going to get an error here that'll say that there's no boot device. Yeah, so perfectly normal. Now I'm going to hit reset on the case, and I'm going to hit the end button again here on the keyboard. And the reason for that is I want to show you the BIOS version now says F7 with a July 6th, 2017 date. And that's all there was to updating the BIOS. So let me go ahead and put the lights back on, and then we'll get the camera set back up. I've been alerted that there's been some buffering going on. The buffering may be happening on your end. It could be happening on YouTube's end. I don't know. But when the stream is completed, if any part of that you missed, after the stream has been updated by YouTube and after we're done being live, there shouldn't be any buffer. Everything that you saw buffering should be included in the final project. Let's see if you can see that. It's always difficult to know how high up that camera has to go. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and hit the switch on the back and shut this thing down. And unplug my keyboard and mouse and take my flash drive and my other flash drive, so I know in the future this Patriot flash drive doesn't work for updating Gigabyte BIOSes. It may work with other manufacturers, but there's just some incompatibility there. So flash drives are cheap, and especially ones that, like this is an old 2 gig flash drive from Team. Team is a memory manufacturer. In fact, Team is the one that makes the memory I put in. Let's just put those over there. Let me put my monitor back so I can see what's going on in the chat room. Set this back over here like this. And plug this back in over here. Like that. Should see you guys again. Yeah, there you are. Very good. Very, very good. And I need my keyboard and mouse plugged back in. Now, for those of you who just joined us, here is a picture of what we are building. We've got 3 computers here that are Core i7s. All of the parts you see in the photo are listed in the video notes below, along with what the total price was. 2 of these systems are identical. This system here is completely done. We just have to do cable management and get Windows installed. Another project for another day. Right now, I need to check my batteries, make sure everything's good here. I need to get this computer moved out of the way so we can start the next one. So I'm going to bring up the intermission screen and cut the audio. You guys can take a little 10-minute break. Hopefully it'll be less than 10 minutes, but I'll be back just as soon as I get the parts for the next build. We're going to essentially build this exact same system, only I'm going to not explain everything twice, okay? So I'm just going to build it. Some of you are curious, how long does it take if you don't have to explain anything? And I'm also not going to do it for the camera. I'm going to do it the way I normally do it, right? So you're not going to have as good of a view as you had on this one, but it'll be a more realistic expectation of how long it takes to build a computer when you don't have to worry about the camera and worry about explaining what you're doing. So let's bring intermission up and then I'll be back shortly. All right, I should be back now. Let's do another check, make sure everybody can still see and hear everything okay. And should be back up and running. There I am. Okay. Just move this aside. So I just had to get all the garbage out of here and make room for the next machine. Here's where we're at. This is the one that's done. It still needs cable management and operating system, but I want to keep moving on with the builds. So let's just get this one and set it out of the way. Let me just set it back off camera back here where it's safe. There we go. And for the next build, oh wait, this is the motherboard box that goes with that. This has all the spare parts. Just put that together with there. And we're going to build the identical system. So once again, we're going to pull everything we're going to need for that. Motherboard, CPU, Evo, RAM. Thank you all for joining me, and let's see, we got about 315 people watching, and hello to everybody watching. Hope you're having a good Thursday afternoon. Doing something, I don't know, you ever seen a video where a guy builds numerous computers live? Has anybody ever done that? Am I making something new here that's never been done before? Let's go ahead and, gotta go grab a case. Actually, while I've got my knife, let's go ahead and start cutting some tape. I got a little tape right here to cut. And there's tape here to cut. There's tape here to cut. And I need a power supply. There we go. One down, two to go. And let's do this. So of course this video is going to be up for probably 3 or 4 years. Someone's going to be watching this video in 2020, you know, and they're going to be like, this is live? No, today is September 28th, 2017, and we are live right now. This is 2:44 in the afternoon in Phoenix. That's Pacific Standard Time, which is -7 hours GMT. And I need to go get a case out of the box. So let me go do that real quick. I was going to do this stuff off camera, and I thought maybe you guys would like to watch it. So, not that there's much to watch here. Just got to get the case out of the box and bring it out here. These are the Corsair 200R. I want to remind you, if you're just joining us, in the video notes is a link to the description of all the parts that are being used, along with the total price of what they cost with today's prices. Whenever there's memory shortages, hard drive shortages, prices go up, they go down, they fluctuate, if not daily, weekly. If you buy these exact same parts and follow the steps I show in my build, you can expect the exact same results. If you want to build something different, there's a free service offered by volunteers at my Facebook fan page. There's a link to the Facebook fan page in the notes below this video. Please be kind to the volunteers. They do not have to help you. They work for free. You are a complete stranger. They have never heard of you before. They know nothing about you. And yet, they are willing to offer help and advice to you. Please treat them kindly. Let's go ahead and put the case up here on the Lazy Susan. Yes, this turntable thingy is called a Lazy Susan. And you can find them on Amazon and furniture stores. This is the documentation. I'm going to get rid of it. All right, guys, you're just going to be a fly on the wall. I'm just building. No explanations. That was already done. This is an identical build to what we just did. Everything's being done in the same order for all the same reasons. So, turn on a little music, relax, and enjoy the show. My moderator in the chat has informed me about Windows 7 not updating with the Kaby Lake CPUs. There's not a technical reason for that. It's a Microsoft marketing reason. There's a free utility you can download. So I'm glad you brought that up. There's a free utility that will basically trick Windows into thinking you have a compatible CPU and then your updates come in as normal. It's not a showstopper. Just a little tiny file you download, you execute it, you're good to go. This is in an office where they require Windows 7, but yeah, I completely forgot about that. Microsoft, I don't even know what the current status of that is, because Microsoft said they were going to do it, and then with all the negative press, they reversed that decision and said they're not going to do it. And then I heard that they were going to do it. But regardless if they have or they haven't, the utility to get Windows 7 updates on Ryzen or Kaby Lake processor is a free download created by a nerd like us. Because again, there's no technical reason Windows 7 won't update. It's Microsoft marketing trying to push you into Windows 10. That's all it is. So much easier to build a computer when I don't have to explain everything and get close-ups and move the camera and make sure I'm in the frame and worry about buffering and worry about what's going on. I can just focus on the build, which is exactly what you guys are going to be doing when you build your own. Oops. Oh! Keep your work area clean, folks. its RAM. Stuff like that will not hurt your RAM. Where's my editor? Give me my portal gun. There we go. Mm-hmm. Board's in. Tell you what, I'll step on the other side and you guys, I don't know. On one hand you can only see the case and on the other side you can only see my back, but maybe it'll help you see a little bit. Go. That's it. It's done. I think that took 13 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. That's a complete build in 13 minutes, including taking all the parts out of the box, putting all the screws in. Time for power on self-test, so I need to use my monitor again, guys. I'm going to grab the monitor here. I've got to go blind to you guys for a moment. Let's bring this around. Plug it in. And then I need the keyboard and mouse. Let's plug that in. That'll just go right up here. I want to be optimistic and assume it boots, so I'm going to take the same BIOS flash file I had from before. And we'll plug that in. And then power is the last thing I'm going to put on. So put the switch on off, plug power, and then flip the switch on. Let me grab my keyboard and mouse, step around to where I'm at the front of the computer instead of the back. Let's turn it on. Power light's not coming on. Did I put it on backwards? Now I'm working with the machine on. You should always work with the machine powered off. Do I really need to say that? Not sure. The machine keeps turning off and on. Connector was on, right. Oh, no it wasn't, because now my power light's on. All right, that solves that problem. But what's happening is we're cycling off and on. So let me just pull the flash drive out of it. My power cable was not all the way in. That keeps happening to me. Let's just do our power on self-test first. I'm seeing a pretty unusual behavior from the motherboard. I see it pulsing, which is really strange. It almost suggests some kind of a power supply issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm turning it off. I'm going to reseat my power cables. I want to make sure that we are off, right? Yeah, we're off. Make sure we're all connected here like we should be. Oh, I see what happened. Right up here, this other 4-pin connector did not go all the way in. So let me take them both off. This is what happens when you don't slow down and enjoy your build. When it becomes a job, you're just trying to get it done as quick as possible. That's when mistakes happen. Overconfidence is your worst enemy. There we go. So I had 2 mistakes. The first one was the power LED not being on correctly. And then the second of the 4 pins up there. Now I'm going to put this flash drive back in because I'm confident now it's going to work. Let me flip the switch back on. Power light's on. CPU fan is spinning. Yeah, I'm still getting that weird pulse. What is that pulse coming from? Very strange. And it just shut itself off. That's different. So that usually indicates something isn't seated properly. Let me shut it off. And I want to reseat this RAM. So I'll take the RAM out and then put it back in again. That's one. Let's do the other one. And then if that doesn't work, I'm going to take out the CPU and reseat it. Because it did kind of seat funny for me. I just kind of ignored it. And I'll take that flash drive out. I seem to be jinxing myself by being positive. Just be negative all the time. I'm still seeing the pulse. That's really weird. Very strange. You know, I'm kind of glad this happened because it makes the stream a little more interesting than when everything goes lickety split. So apparently that's my word for today, lickety split. Connectors on, good, yes. We're all good up here, yeah. Everything's happy. I could have a bad power supply, but before I check that, I think I want to pull the CPU out. So remember when I talked about rotating those towers in the direction of the arrow? I'm going to do that now so I can then lift up on those towers and take this heatsink off. And then I'm going to reseat the CPU. The thermal compound is not airtight. You do not have to reapply the thermal compound simply because you've taken the heatsink off and back on again. That's completely unnecessary. I would strongly encourage you to run some temperature tests and verify that what I'm telling you is true. It'll have no effect on your temps whatsoever. So what I want to do is I'm just going to take the CPU out of its socket. And then I'm going to set it right back in again without touching the thermal compound, because that would contaminate it. And then I'm just going to put the heatsink right back on again. It's a very simple thing to do. You can't just go, well, it can't be the CPU. Oh, it's not going to lock down until I turn the little towers back in the opposite direction of the arrows. So let me do that. There we go. And hook the fan back up. Turn the switch back on. Still pulsing. I don't like the pulse. I don't know why it's happening. The other thing that I want to check is that NVMe drive. It may not have seated it all the way. So let's take that out and try turning it on without the NVMe drive in it. Let's take that one out. And let's just put the NVMe drive right here for a moment, and let's just see if it turns on without it. Still pulsing. That is the strangest thing. I don't know how well you can hear that. But it's got a pulse to it. So we made no difference there. So let's take out one of these RAM modules. Let's set it down. Try it again. Flip the switch back on. Turn it back on. Still pulse. I wonder if I got a bad power supply. Nothing doing. Okay. So, just the process of elimination you go through. You don't have to panic. You don't have to freak out. We're going to take the other RAM module out and put this RAM module back in. In fact, I'll even trade sockets. No, I'll put it in this socket right here. There we go. Flip it on. Flip the switch. Oh, that sounds promising. All right, so it may be my mistake that when I knocked the RAM off, it shouldn't have hurt the RAM, but maybe it did. This RAM module seems like is the culprit, so let me just drain the excess power. Let's put this module back in just to make sure it wasn't a seating problem. And with this module back in, does the problem reoccur? Yeah, it's pulsing. That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So I may have damaged the memory when I dropped it. So that's all right though. We know what the problem, we know what the culprit is. And that would have been my fault. Just wasn't paying close enough attention to where my parts were. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to put the NVMe drive back in. There we go. And ideally, the manufacturer will honor the warranty, because I don't know if it worked or if it was shipped to me that way. I don't know. But if they accept it back and swap it out, I'm good with that. So that's why you got to be patient with your build also, because if you are going to need replacement parts, you have a couple days shipping to them and a couple days of them shipping back to you. So you're going to have a few days of downtime. And usually you send the memory back in the way you got it. So this came as a pair, it'll go back as a pair. Now I should be able to plug the flash drive in. And I've got everything plugged back in again, except that one memory module. Let's flip this on. Solid state parts, you know, it's not like a hard drive. If it was a hard drive, I'd be worried about breaking it. But a solid state part usually can take quite a bit of abuse. You can take a flash drive and throw it as hard and as far as you can. And as long as it doesn't physically break in two or anything or shatter, the flash drive you'll find will continue to work. So that's why I say I don't know if that module was just bad out of the box or if the fall killed it. But either way, these are lessons we learn. And these kind of lessons are ones you don't forget. You probably won't make these mistakes again. I hope you don't. Hope you just make it once. And we're going to go ahead and update the BIOS. We still have F6. I should have checked it, but I just assumed it was the same. I'm in a bit of a hurry. But we were at F6 just like the other board. If this was already at F7, it should come up and say you're trying to update the same BIOS, so you're sure. But yeah, that's our bad unit right there. And while that's happening, I can see who's trying to talk to me. Nothing that can't wait. We're almost done updating the BIOS. Actually, it does that backup BIOS as well. So the GIGABYTE boards, many of them have dual BIOS, which really isn't necessary in this day and age. Well, I'll have to remember this day. This is the day I got a bad part or caused a part to be bad in many, many years. When you're in business and you deal with thousands of memory modules, losing one for any reason is not a big deal. So, not the end of the world. And Newegg says they are out of stock on that memory, and Amazon doesn't carry it. So I may have to go directly to the memory manufacturer or return the memory and order another brand. I prefer all the computers to be built with the same parts for consistency reasons. But these computers aren't going to be needed until the end of October. So the customer isn't even going to pick these up for 3 to 4 weeks. So there's plenty of time. At least I get them built and then get the cable managed and get the software installed. Those are 16 gigs a piece. There we go. That is our update Let me turn it back on. Let's go in the BIOS. Let's make sure it sees 16 gigs. Should tell me in the BIOS how much memory we've got in there. Thought it would be right here on this page. It sees our UEFI drive. And then of course I can set how much memory I want to dedicate to the onboard video. And that's the fan speed information. Interesting, they're not giving me my installed RAM. All right, well, we'll find out when we get the OS getting installed here. Let me just go ahead and take the flash drive out, flip that switch back off, and I can put the other monitor back up, and we can start on system number 3, moving right along. Toodaloo, toodaloo. Let's grab the monitor. Let's put that back over here. And we'll just set that up right there. And we'll set this over here. There we go. Keyboard and mouse. Boom. Need the module. Thank you. Okay. Get that unplugged. Yeah, well, I will never know if that module was bad out of the package or if the 3-foot drop to the floor broke it. But in either case, I'm going to send it back as a warranty issue. I expect they're going to replace it. There's nothing, you know, it was in the package when it fell. It's not as though the RAM was bare and exposed. So, and there's nothing physically wrong with it that I can see. Everything's solid state. You should be able to take these and throw them across the room as long as you don't static discharge or static shock them. They should work. That's why you really don't have to baby this stuff. You know, it's not fragile. You just want to handle it properly, and I've talked about that before. But listen, I'm a human being, and if I caused it, it's on me. It happens. And nothing like doing that on a live stream with 422 people watching. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, let's see, we need to put this computer off to the side somewhere. I am running out of room very quickly on putting stuff off to the side. I guess I can take these panels and I'll put these with the other ones in the back room. Let me go do that. And let me move this somewhere. Where can I find a place? I guess this can go over here. I'm going to need that package for the RAM to send it back. Everything else I can throw away. So let's grab the instructions that I have on the floor. Put that in the motherboard box. Screws for the case go in there. And let's see, is that everything? I think that's everything. Okay, sorry guys, just had to clean up the floor to make room for the next mess on the floor. Let me put this away. I like keeping these wire ties. What I do with them is when I have extra cables and I need to tie the cables up, I grab one of these long wire ties, I tie the cable up, and I cut the excess off the wire ties so I don't have a bunch of slack hanging off of it. It makes it nice and tidy. And then this I'm going to put back in here. Which way did it come out? It had to go in this way. Doesn't seem to want to go in. Well, I know you came out of there. Wow, that's a tight fit. All right. I'll just set that aside because that may go back to, you know, I don't even normally use this brand of memory. This is Team. I've used them in the past, but normally I use GeIL or GeIL or Corsair. But it was a good price. Well, then maybe you shouldn't have dropped it. Maybe it wouldn't have made any difference. We'll never know. Yeah, we kind of do. Okay. We got the final system to build. Let's just start with the motherboard. Now with this one, I am missing the M.2 drive. But you know what? It's almost 3:30. The mailman might have come. So let me take a quick intermission and check the mail, and let's see if I have an M.2 drive. If I'm lucky, I've got an M.2 drive waiting for me. So we're going to be back. And just about, give me 5 minutes or so, and then I'll know whether or not I've got an update. Okay, so if you're just joining me, well, first of all, can everybody still hear me okay? Everything's good. We got the video going. Video and audio, everything's looking good. Thank you, Douglas. And this memory, I'm going to have to RMA. I'm probably going to have to pull both memory modules out. No use crying over spilled milk. What's done is done. Move on. Keep moving. Show must go on. That's the way business and life is. Now I've got the new case out of the box. I checked the mail. No joy, unfortunately. The mail did come, but for some reason, that 250 gig NVMe Samsung 960, I don't know what the deal is, why it's shipping slower than everything else. But the good thing is we can still build everything, we can still cable manage everything. I just can't put an OS on this until I get the solid state drive going. All right, so we're going to repeat the same processes that I've already done. Again, this system's identical except instead of 32 gigs of RAM, it's going to have 16. So 2 sticks of 8 instead of 2 sticks of 16. Is it better to use 1 stick or 2 sticks or 4 sticks of 4 to get to 16? It really depends on when you plan on upgrading. If you fill up all your memory banks, you'll have to remove memory. So if you are planning to get to 16, I'm sorry, if you're starting with 8 and you're planning to get to 16 and you want to go with 2 4s and then go buy 2 4s later, you fill up all your banks, you're good to go. Some motherboards only have 2 sockets though for memory, so pay attention to that when you buy your motherboard. It's something to consider, keep in mind. Is it any faster? Not to a human being. Maybe to some benchmarking software you might see a slight increase using dual memory, that dual channel, so you want to always use 2. But it'll work, as you saw, just fine with 1 memory module. Just grounding myself out there. Go ahead and take this board out of its bag and get rid of that. Start with the RAM. If you're just joining us and you're curious what we're building, let me put that up on the screen. That's right here. These are all the parts we're building with today. And so far we built 2 out of the 3. And now we're on the final 3 of 3. That last system took me 13 minutes to build, but I went a little too fast, so I'm going to go a little bit slower with this build. And all the parts you see on the screen are listed part by part in the notes below the video. And let's get started. Open up these retention modules. Let's get that memory seated. This memory is made by GeIL. This is normally the company I buy memory from. GeIL or Corsair, probably most common. I like the stuff from A-Data, even though a lot of the A-Data isn't the fastest. I also like Team, which you saw me use earlier. It's pretty rare to get bad components these days. But you shouldn't drop your memory on the floor. Try to avoid that if you can. All right, let's get the heatsink out, instructions, CPU. It's 3:36. Let's wind it back a minute. We started about a minute ago. I'm kind of just timing myself. It's not a race. I want you guys to slow down and enjoy your builds. When you're doing it for a living and you're paid by the hour, you're going to want to build faster. But if you're an enthusiast, which I assume the vast majority of you are, enjoy your build. Take it nice and slow. These computers only have 6 parts. We've got the motherboard, the memory, the CPU, the SSD, the case, and the power supply. That's it. This assumes you already have a keyboard and mouse and monitor and speakers, and those are all subjective anyway. Nobody can tell you what a good keyboard, mouse, monitor, or speakers are. Only you can decide what looks good, sounds good, and feels good to you. The only person who knows that is you. Let's go ahead and get these panels on. Oh, those are instructions. I can go over there. This live stream will be made available probably a few hours after it's done airing live. It takes YouTube, especially videos that go on several hours like a lot of my live streams do. They often go on a couple of hours of processing that YouTube does, whatever that means. And then they're made available after that. I'm not the one delaying the video, it's YouTube that's doing that. But the good news is I haven't had any blue screens, so that's good. Usually I would have had one by now. So that means it's either my other capture card or the drivers I replaced. So when I do my next live stream, I may play with that capture card a bit more just to determine if that's causing it, or maybe it just doesn't like to play well with others. I don't know. But that's part of the fun of being a tech, is you get to diagnose all this kind of stuff. And even after 26 years, I still get surprised. You know, I think I know what the problem is, and then turns out it's not what it was. There we go. Done with that. Put the two standoffs in. Where's my standoffs at? Won't need that, won't need that, won't need that. There's my two. And one standoff goes here in the case, as I showed earlier. Same motherboard, same case, same standoff, same place. I'm a poet, didn't even know it. Put the I/O shield in. And that bottom corner's, I guess it's in. The Lazy Susan's great to spin it around and show you stuff on video, but when it comes to putting things in the case like the motherboard, I much prefer to have the case laying completely flat. There we go. Now we can secure that down into position. When you're building, this is the way you should be doing it, not when I show you upright, you know, that I'm doing that so you can see. I would never willingly build a computer like that. No, things aren't lining up. Things are not lining up. So I'm going to take the board back out. I want to double check that standoff. It kind of feels like it's not seated all the way down, so I need to get a flashlight and take a look in there. Oh yeah, it's seated. It's good. So maybe I just had the board sitting a little funky, so it's good to take the board out, put it back in again. There we go. Push it forward. I'm going to start with that screw this time, the one that was giving me grief. Much better. Okay. Wait a minute. Wait just a minute. Oh, there it is. Like, I know I had a mounting hole there somewhere. I was looking right at it and I couldn't see it. There we go. Just 2 more screws. Do these right up here on the top. I'm going to close these other memory brackets. There, all done. Okay, board's in. We can always add the M.2 drive real easy when it arrives. It's just 1 screw. And of course, if I have the cable management done then, it'll be even easier, so there won't be any cables in my way. Let's see, all this can go in the box now. And now it's time for our power supply to go in. You should never cut towards yourself. You should always cut away from yourself. I'm not giving the best example here. Instructions. Screws. Power cable. Power cable goes in the motherboard box. Garbage. More garbage. Sticker. Power supply goes in the case. There we go. Lock it down and torque them down a little bit. Good. Flip the switch on that power supply to off while I'm looking at it. Don't have to worry about it later. And then I can start hooking up cables. I love building these because they're so easy, you know. Just 2 power cables. What a dream. Wire tie number 1. Wire tie number 2. I'm going to hook up this front fan. Did I say front fan? I'll hook up the rear fan. I leave the front fans unplugged. There's no video card to cool down, and in Arizona, they just collect dust and end up causing a support call when the fan bearing goes out. My computer's making noise, so it's completely unnecessary to hook this front fan up unless you've got some drives in front of there you want to cool, which we don't, or a graphics card up here we want to cool, which we don't. We're going to be running off onboard video. Be used in a business environment. Everybody's got to pay their taxes, and when you do, this computer is going to be part of that system that's going to tell you how much to give the government or how much you're getting back. And when it comes to playing games, nobody knows how to do that like the IRS. All right. Feels pretty good. sure I get both of these on good this time. I can't really see it. I have to kind of feel for it. Yeah, I heard both sides click in that time. Make sure we get the slack taken up. Let's do our audio cable. Let's do our USB 3 cable. Good. And then our front port switches and lights are going to go right in through here. Always start with the hard drive light first. HDD LED, where are you? It's got to be the last one. Always the last one. The reset switch in, which is right here. I'm going to go right beside the hard drive LED. And then we can put the power LED on. See if I can get this one right this time too. There we go. That'll go on right there, right above the power, right above the hard drive LED. Why isn't it going on? There it is. And then finally, we've got the power switch. That goes right beside the power LED and immediately over or on top of the reset switch. That's it. We don't use any of these cables. That's for future upgrades and expandability. We're ready to do our power on self-test. It's 351. So that one took me, of course I didn't have to put an M.2 drive in there, right? So it wasn't exactly the same. And then I'm going to grab my keyboard, mouse, and monitor again. I think you guys are starting to get the routine here. Same thing, over and over and over and over and over and over. There we go. Let's bring that over here. Plug it in. Keyboard and mouse, we'll plug that in. Let's flip this around over here. I'm confident it's going to boot and need a BIOS update. I still have the BIOS update file on here. Just put that right there. And here we go, power on self-test. I guess I need power too, don't I? Let's get power plugged into this thing. Flip the switch on, hit the power button, fans are turning, power lights on. Hopefully we get a post over here. Sounds better than that last one did. Yeah, sounds good. Be patient. Boom, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to hit reset. That also tests the reset switch. Hold down. Keep pressing the end key on the keyboard. End. We're We're into the BIOS update, enter. Select that one, enter. And now we're updating the BIOS. I'm out of parts. That's it. I built everything. I built it or I broke it. One or the other. Let's see. I guess I can pick up some of this trash while we're waiting. Do you know what's been missing out of my builds lately? There hasn't been any silica gel. Wonder what's up with that. And by the way, there's nothing harmful on silica or desiccant silica gel. It says do not eat because it's a choking hazard. The actual silica gel is inert. It can't hurt you. But the packet itself you can choke on. And that's why it says do not eat. The more you know. All right, let's see how we're doing over here. I got a lot of garbage to take out. Well, that's all going to go to recycling. All the cardboard boxes and everything that's got a little recycling symbol on it will go in the recycle bin. Almost done. Now it's going to reboot. We'll let that do its thing. These SATA cables can go in the box. I want to make sure that I get back to the BIOS screen here. Bingo. All right, turn that off. Take my flash drive. Thank you very much. We're done with that. I can erase it. Put it back in the drawer for the next build. And I'm going to turn this back on and hit the end button. I want to make sure we have F7 BIOS installed. No disk drive found. Yeah. Okay. Are you telling me I got to have the... Wow. That's interesting. So I have to have the flash drive in it to get to that Q flash. Huh. Didn't realize that. Guess that makes sense though. Nothing to flash. Why confuse you with the option to flash? Yeah. F7. Perfect. Shut this back down. And put that away. Good, good. So just some cable management needs to be done on that, and then I can't do anything with an OS or anything until I get an M.2 drive for it. But again, that may be a future build video, not a future live stream where I show people how to, the modifications you have to make to Windows 7 to get it installed, and then to get it to update properly on Windows Update. Yeah, now you can see what I see. Turn that back around. And put it up here where it goes. There we go. Keyboard and mouse. There we go. All right, just put that over there, and I'll put these screws in there. And it looks like this manual goes to this other box. So let me put that over there. Then go to this one. Looks like it goes to this one over here. Yeah, that's where it goes. Okay, I think that is everything. That's our 3 computer builds done and done. No blue screens on the stream today, which is good. If you're just joining me one more time, these are the parts that we built with today. And we've got all 3 systems built. All the links to the parts and their various descriptions and prices are in the video notes below. You'll have to click on the link to see the prices, because the prices are always changing, but there is a total price that's offered there as of when the parts were ordered. But prices are always changing, keep that in mind. And I am going to ask you guys if you have any questions for me before we wrap this up. Any technical questions or anything related to what was done today? Where's the Coca-Cola? I am cutting back on the Coca-Cola. Can you send me a GoFast sticker? I don't have any GoFast stickers to send you. Carrie, maybe it's a bad RAM socket. It's unlikely. It's possible. You really don't know unless you check it. Did you check the RAM socket? You guys are fascinated about the RAM socket. I think I've only seen 2 or 3 bad RAM sockets in all my years of doing this. And given that I dropped the memory, I'm more likely to, I'm leaning that it's the memory. But you're right, it's possible, and the only way you can know is to test it. So let's test it. Let's see. I mean, just because it's not likely doesn't mean it's not possible. So let me move this. Oh boy, I am quickly running out of room. Let's get the RAM. And put the motherboard box. This motherboard box goes to this case. Let's put the RAM over here. I honestly think it's a RAM module. But overconfidence, that'll get you every time. You cannot, and I want to stress, you cannot assume what the problem can't be. You have to test everything. Personally, every fiber in my being says checking the RAM socket is a complete waste of time, but you have to do it anyway. You guys are absolutely right. Let's get this back over here again and unplug it from here. And this will go right here. I need my keyboard and mouse. Let's grab that and plug it in right here. So the logic on why I don't think it's a bad RAM socket is that RAM module, I'm thinking about this now, was in the socket the current one is in. This was the second module. So if I take this RAM module and just for giggles, we can put this in each of the sockets. There's no reason we can't. I'm pretty confident that, see, this module that I moved was in this second DIMM 2. And then I moved it over to here. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this module out completely. All right, so you guys can follow along with me. You don't have to take my word. I never want anybody to take anyone's word, you know? You either have to experience it yourself or be there, preferably in person when someone else is doing it, to fully grasp the experience. And the other thing is I just feel the module just to see if anything feels off with it. I can kind of wiggle it a little bit if anything's loose. I'm going to put it right back where it was. It was initially installed here. I want to open all of these retention levers up because we're going to be moving it across all of them. I need to plug power in, so let's grab power cable. And then flip the switch on. And what the board will do is, you can see this light, this audio light here. It's blinking, it's fluctuating. It's got this weird fluctuation that's preventing it from booting. It's really annoying me. And I know when it does that, it's not going to boot. That's not normal. I've never seen a computer do that before. And it'll eventually just shut itself off here in a moment. And that's in the module where it was working, the socket rather. So I'm going to shut it off again. I'm going to drain the power out. See how the fan spun right there? Because I'm hitting the power switch. It's draining the caps out of the power supply. Let's move this over one. And let's try it again. No. No, it's fluctuating again. It's pulsing. And then it will eventually shut itself off. I don't need to wait for that to happen. I mean, I know what's going to do. Let's drain the power out of the caps. There we go. Let's move it into DIMM number 3. Turn it back on. Hit the switch. Pulsed again. Pulsed. Pulsed. Continues to pulse. It's definitely the RAM module. And then we'll take that one out. And then we'll move it into our final socket. Flip it back on. Same thing, just continues to pulse. I'll tell you what I've seen happen with memory modules, and it usually happens in shipping. And that is, when you get a memory module with a heat sink, like if I would have ordered memory that didn't have the heat shield on it, or the heat spreader, whatever you want to call it, these are oftentimes glued to the memory chips. And then if there's a big shock to the system, because the chips underneath are surface mounted, it can actually pull the chips right off the board. I've seen memory arrive in the mail where the heat spreader has come off and the chips are still connected to the heat spreader. And there's no fixing it. I mean, it's done. And then, like I say, the memory is a little bit flexible. Obviously, I don't want to snap it in half or I'm not going to have a warranty, but you can kind of wiggle it around just to see if there's anything loose. Maybe reseat something, but in this kind of case, it's probably not going to work. It may have just caused that heat sink to yank the memory chip right off the board. And so it's there, but it's just not making a good connection. Or it's a defect in manufacturing, I don't know. But that's just not going to boot. Oh, it is booting now. I just heard it. How come I got no video? What happened to my video? There it is. Well, that's an interesting turn of events, isn't it? By flexing that memory back and forth, it seems to have corrected it. Now I don't trust it. So here's what I have to do now. So I put the memory exactly where it was when we started. The only thing that's any different is you saw me flexing it. And let me put the other module in. Actually, no. Let me leave this module out, because what I need to do is go to, I'm going to grab this flash drive, and I am going to go to memtest86 and download memtest and see. Obviously, I can't run the live stream while memtest86 runs up through a pass, because it's probably going to take it 2 or 3 hours to get through 16 gigs of RAM. 90 minutes anyway. And in fact, I just recently downloaded memtest86. What did I do with it? That doesn't matter. So what you do is you go to, I think it's memtest, well, you just Google search memtest86. And yeah, it's memtest86.com. And then I'm going to hit the download now button. And then it's got the Pro Edition I don't need. It says 7.4 free edition download. That's what I want. We're going to download that, and it actually will make the USB for you. In fact, I think I have all these files on my server. I just did this the other day. I was testing another system. Problem is I don't know where I put the files, so it might be faster to just re-download them again. Oh, no, here it is. memtest86, image usb.exe. We're going to run that. Which disk do you want to use? I want to use disk number 2. Write image, yes. And then I'll hit the right button. Says it's going to overwrite everything on the USB drive. So make sure you select the right USB drive. If you've got more than one, it gives you a warning that yes, you're going to overwrite everything on that drive. I'm fine with that. I just had the BIOS files on that drive and I'm done with them. You don't need a very big flash drive. This flash drive is only 2 gigs. It's going to take up the whole flash drive, right? So if you have an 8 gig flash drive, you're just going to have wasted space, but it'll still work with it. And it's about 1/3 of the way done right now. It's pretty fast. Like, it's not a very big file. I think the file's 154 megabytes. So it only uses 1/4 of a gig, less than 1/4 of a gig. Less than 1/5 of a gig. So even a 1 gig flash drive or a 512 meg flash drive will be fine for memtest86. It's completely free utility. Image is completed, click OK and click exit and then eject the flash drive. That's how fast that is. So let me hit eject and get that flash drive out of here. Perfect. Now I can come back and join you guys. And we're going to put memtest in here. This is the only thing it can boot to, so it should just boot to it when we turn it on. I suppose I have to flip the switch on the power supply back on. So I've got the flash drive plugged in. I should plug this fan in. There we go. So memtest is loading. And then we're going to see if it has, if any of the chips have been dislodged. It may be that that it's booting, but it doesn't work completely. It may be that when you hit certain areas of the memory, it fails. So here it's getting all the SPD details of the chip, the memory controller details, testing the processor support. It's going to automatically run the test. You don't have to press a key. You don't have to do a thing. All you have to do is make the flash drive, plug it in, make sure your computer boots to the flash drive, and let it run. Now, if any errors come up here, usually they show up in red, although this is a new version of MemTest I haven't used. If any errors come up, you'll see them here. It shows the memory is 15.8 gigs. Now, it's not going to show 16 because we've got built-in video, and the built-in video card is stealing 0.2 of that to display video. It's going to go through 10 different types of tests. So right now it's on test number 3. Okay, so you'll see that the individual test progress is this bar here, and the total pass progress is the bar on top. So there are lots of different reads and writes, randoms and such, and it's going to take it, I'm going to guess, probably around, I mean, it's moving at a pretty good clip here. But that's where it gets a little bit deceiving because it actually goes through the first 6 or 7 tests pretty fast. It's test 8, 9, and 10 that take a while. But so far, so good. If anything appears down here, any errors, they're not repairable. The memory has to be replaced. It couldn't hurt, especially if you're having any sort of blue screens or strange errors on your computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, to download this free utility onto a small flash drive and let it run. Depending on how fast your computer is and how much memory you've got will determine how long it's going to take. And you should let it run through at least 3 total passes. Remember, each pass is probably going to take, I'm going to say on average about 60 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes for one pass. It could take longer, it could take less. And we'll just go ahead and let that run and we'll check in on it. And let me go ahead and switch everything back over. Because if this passes, then we're good. Then I don't have to send anything back. I'm not real comfortable with it. But nobody's going to be opening it and playing with it. So it should be fine. So I'm going to put the monitor back so I can see what you guys are saying. Let's bring this back around. Well, the live stream is just full of twists and turns. How the hard drive turns. Your daily nerd soap opera. Starring Carrie Springfield. There we go. All right, here we go. We are running the test. Now, here's where we can see if I get the blue screen errors. I'm going to grab my other, I've got another external capture device, which is made by the same company as my internal capture device, so they use the same drivers. And that's this one right here. Let me bring it up close so you guys can see what it is. In the streaming computer is an internal PCI Express capture card made by StarTech. This is an external capture card, also, as you can see, made by StarTech. So it uses the same drivers. It's just a little box like this. It's USB 3. It gets power from USB. And here's my USB cable. And I'm going to plug this in right here and then into the back of the streaming computer. And hopefully it doesn't blue screen on me when I do this. Let's see what happens. We're going to go, let's go right here. We still live? We're still live. Haven't lost you yet. And then I need to grab another video cable. I can use DVI or HDMI. I'm thinking because I turned the system on with DVI, I'm going to have to stay with DVI. I don't think the HDMI activated. I really don't want to play with it. And I know I have a DVI cable. Yeah, here's one right here. We'll just use DVI. Stay that way. So here's a DVI cable. And we'll plug that DVI cable here. That's good because I wanted to test this anyway, so this is good. Let me come back around. Let's bring that over here to the capture card and plug it into the capture card, just like so. I feel like that's going to fall. Everything's kind of on the edge in here. And let me go to my software and let's instruct. Let's create a new source. And I'm going to label it StarTech External. Which is saying has no signal. So let me switch that off and go to the StarTech software. Actually, it does create a bit of a dilemma, doesn't it? You know what? I think it's sort of embedded into the StarTech software. Let me try an HDMI cable. I have enough of them laying around here. There we go. I just don't think the HDMI initialized it power on, and on most of these, at least in my experience, they don't turn on after the fact, but it certainly won't hurt to try. Let's go HDMI into the external capture. Still says no signal. I'm getting nothing. You should still be able to hear me. And let me just unplug it from the capture card. Nope. So that's not going to make a difference. I'll just leave them both plugged in. We'll get DVI and HDMI. Let's do them both. Be one less thing to diagnose later. Put that back up into the computer. Now the problem potentially is that when I switch over to DVI, because it's sharing the same driver, it may lose the audio for me talking to you guys. It may switch both over. So let's see what happens if I bring up the StarTech software. And their software, what is it called? Stream Catcher. Let's bring up Stream Catcher. And let's say settings. Ooh, it's not even giving me the option. It's saying the device is in use. Well, that does make things complicated, doesn't it? Rats. Okay, not gonna work. So I can go to the GeIL card, but I'm afraid when I do that I might get blue screened. But let's find out. So let me take the StarTech card out. I thought the StarTech external and internal would work at the same time. I may have to experiment with that. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just try one more thing. try one other thing here. Let's switch over to the StarTech card. Yeah, it is not liking that one bit. Okay. All right. So let me take the StarTech card out. I mean, it sees it, but when I select it, it seems confused. I think it's confused. It says, you're already using a StarTech card. I mean, it's not what it says, but it's the way it's how it says it. Let me get my GeIL card. Now, if the computer blue screens when I plug in the GeIL card, then I know that it's either the GeIL card or an incompatibility using the GeIL and the StarTech internal capture at the same time. So again, I'm going to stick with DVI here since I don't think HDMI is going to work. Oh, GeIL is only HDMI. I don't have any choice. So let's plug that in. And we'll see if we crash. GeIL. All right, so I think that's going to work okay. You guys should be able to hear me now. Can everybody? Oh, we're buffering. We got to let it buffer. There we go. It's back. Can everybody still hear me? Do we have audio? Yes, we have audio. Okay, I should be able to then switch back over to the GeIL. And you should still be able to hear me. So you can see the GeIL and you can hear me. Is that correct? I'm sorry, you can see MemTest and hear me. Good. All right. So MemTest is going to take a while to run. We haven't blue screened yet, which is a good sign. Although I think we'd still need to let it run a while with both capture cards running simultaneously before I can definitively say the driver fixed it. But you can see memtest does take a while to run. And I'm going to put this cable away. Good use for those wire ties I've got left over. Tie this cable up. There we go. So preferably I'll let it go through 3 full passes, but if it gets through the first pass okay, I think we're going to be all right. Pretty strange problem. Life as a tech. And who's got questions? Anybody's got questions? Carrie, I think that RAM will come back to bite you if you leave it. Anything's possible. But I still have an operating system to put in. I still have drivers to put in. I still have updates to put on. And I think if that RAM lives through all of that, we'll be good. The RAM's got a good warranty on it. Can't remember what it is. Was it lifetime? It doesn't say. I'm sure it's in the documentation. John Yasuda contributed $12 to the cause. Thank you, John. Thanks for contributing to the channel. I appreciate your support. Any other questions you guys have? What are the main functions for these machines? These machines are being used in an accounting office. They'll be doing large spreadsheets, number crunching for huge corporations, dozens of tabs open, big time. Can you split the screen with this and you? I have to get XSplit configured. Right now I'm just running OBS. So no, I can't do that right now. I want to make sure that all the blue screen issues are solved before I introduce another piece of software which cause problems. If you're just joining us, these are the parts that we've just built 3 computers from. And all the parts and their descriptions are all listed in the video notes below the video. And the live stream will be processed by YouTube once I finish the live stream. It'll take a couple hours, and it'll be available for you to come back and watch later. And let's see how we're doing here. The Magewell card's still running well. Let me just flip that off momentarily and go back to the main screen. And I'm kind of standing off to the side. And this is usually, I'm going to flip it back. This is usually where my blue screens occurs in the flipping back and forth. But everything seems to be running really well so far. And knock on wood, it'll continue the rest of the time. What kind of mic do you use? I have a wireless Sony lapel mic. It's about $600 at Amazon. What made you bend the RAM? When RAM doesn't work right, especially when it's got a heat spreader on it, sometimes, you know what, I already explained this. Go back and watch the video when it's done, and then you can understand. I explained it as I was doing it. Do you recommend doing memtest for all new PC builds? No, unless you suspect something's wrong, there's no reason to do it. The best memory test and the best system burn-in is to just get Windows installed and all your drivers. If it does that successfully, you're probably going to be fine. Are heat spreaders really needed? When you're dealing with large amounts of memory, they can get hot and they don't hurt. So I'd rather have them. They also protect the RAM during installation from any electrostatic discharge. Do you offer warranty on labor? Yeah, my warranty is on these computers good for life. Brandon, thank you for the kind words. So take a quick moment to say hello to everybody in the chat. Daniel Ferrara, Anime Beef Randoms, Elko Chaser, Trush0T1, Ed Miller. Big thanks to my moderator who's been with me the whole time today, Douglas Biggers. Thanks for spending your time with me today and moderating the chat. I really appreciate it. Doomer37, Brandon45, Bill Sony TT3 says hello. Haid Cade says, I heard a rumor that manufacturers are going to start making processors that are already built onto the boards. Is this true? It's already been happening. Most Atom processors are built onto the boards and all laptops are soldered onto the boards. SGT Westchap has contributed $10 to the channel. Thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate that. If the customer comes back to you in 4 years with a broken part, do you replace it for free? The labor is free. If the part is under warranty, there'll be no cost to the customer. If the part is not under warranty, then we'll get new parts at that time, if we can still find them 4 years from now. I can only warranty the labor. I can't warranty the parts any more than the manufacturers. So if the manufacturer has a lifetime warranty, then the customer has a lifetime warranty. Carrie, have you looked into the Coffee Lake specs yet? Of course. Josh Kimder says hello. Lance Ripplinger says hello. Angry Dad 1969 says he loves the show. Doomer37 says, thanks, Carrie. Love these live streams and all your vids. Thank you. CCTV user says, thank you for going back to that troublesome RAM stick. Yeah, well, again, thank you for encouraging me to take a second look at it. Just goes to show you, overconfidence, you know. I really felt that was going to be a waste of time. Devil vs. Angel says, what do you think of Intel not making their chipsets backward compatible with new generation CPUs? I think it's brilliant. Otherwise, you won't be able to take full advantage of the new technology as it's being held back like an anchor from compatibility. This is what holds back Windows from progressing. Windows, when they cut off things and say, you know, no more this, no more that, people have a fit. So by making things backwards compatible, you're preventing or slowing down the evolution of the product. Carrie, have you built any Ryzen systems as yet? That's from Stagsy. I build whatever customers order. If a customer orders a Ryzen, I'll be building one. Because Ryzen does not come with a built-in video card like Intel does, all the systems I've been building lately have been for businesses that don't need discrete graphics, and it would cost them more money to go with Ryzen. Richard Lewis says hello from Vancouver, British Columbia. Lasher1993 says, hi, Carrie, love the vids. Ronaldo Torres says, I wouldn't put that in, and I'd send that like that, Carrie, the bad RAM. Well, the manufacturer is not going to replace the memory if they cannot replicate the problem. So there's no sense in me sending it in unless it's bad. SCO chat wants to know, when you install Windows on those 3 computers, do you do them one at a time or do you clone them? I will do them one at a time. I will not clone them. I need to make sure, like I say, installing Windows is the best burn-in test in my opinion. So if you clone it, you may have a problem you don't see, and then when the customer gets it, you start hearing about blue screens and things like that. So that's the way we do burn-ins now, is we install the OS, we download, install all the updates. We don't use WSUS or anything like that. We want to make sure that when the customer gets it, the way the customer is going to use it is going to work. course, Windows will be installed through USB. I've already got a video that shows the update you have to put on the Windows install disk on 100 and 200 series Intel chipsets. That will have to be applied for Windows to install from USB. And then, of course, there'll be another update for Windows to see the NVMe drive. Are they buying new monitors to go with the new PCs? You guys ask some really weird stuff. Why do you care? I don't know if they have monitors, if they're buying monitors, if they're going to use 2 or 3 monitors on each machine. I don't care. They can do whatever the heck they want. Are they going to go with a mechanical keyboard? Are they going to go with an ergonomic keyboard? Are they going to go with a touch keyboard? I don't know. I don't care. They can do whatever they want. They're going to go with 7.1 surround sound? I doubt it. Are they even going to plug speakers in? I don't know. Are the monitors they buy going to have speakers built in? Don't know. Don't care. It's got nothing to do with me. Customer can do whatever they want. i7 seems like overkill. Yes, well, it would to you if you don't understand the accounting business this is going to. But if you did, an i7 would seem like it's not enough. Do you think the i7 7700K is the best bang for the buck out there right now? No. It depends on how you use the computer. Would you or anyone else happen to remember that patch that makes Windows 7 work with newer CPUs? You just Google search. It's not a big deal. Just Google it. Windows 7 update patch Skylake. You should pull it right up. Patrick Rossaw says, love the live streams and your videos, but my wallet doesn't. Now my office has got 15 computers, mostly used for DVD conversation to my HTTP. See, okay. I'm an accountant. Yes, and all accountants are the same, right? So you think if you work in a multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar corporation that has 30,000 employees, that a Core i7 ought to be good enough to do all the accounting and books? So people have this is a problem that I see a lot in society today, and that's people have no consideration of anybody's needs but their own. Well, I'm an accountant and I don't need an i7. Well, you don't do this kind of accounting and it's not your money. So why do you care? Why does it bother you? Are you going to have to support the computer? Are you the one that's going to warranty it? Are you the one that's got to collect the bill? For all you know, this customer called me and demanded an i7. It wouldn't hear anything else I said. But the fact of the matter is this customer does numerous clients that have a large number of employees with huge spreadsheets, and they've worked with i5s before, and they've worked with 16 gigs of RAM, and it's not good enough for them. But thank you for making me justify it to some stranger on the internet who's going to qualify me to determine and question my skills. That makes me feel real good. Thank you. I'm glad I passed your test. People need to learn to ask more questions before making accusations. Dante says, I'm turning into an old man that's going to yell at my, get off the lawn. This is my ball now. I'm getting there. It's my ball. Well, when somebody's nasty with me, I'm going to be nasty back. You know, if you treat me nice, if you ask questions, I'll be happy to answer them. When you make statements, then you don't know what the heck you're talking about, and you're insinuating incompetence on my live stream, it's extraordinarily offensive. I didn't do anything to you. I didn't accuse you of anything. I'm not picking on you. I'm not questioning you. I don't appreciate it back in return. It's unasked for, it's uncalled for, and it's rude. You're in my house. Show some respect. Well, that guy's out of here. Done with him. I am going to be rude to people that are rude to me. If you're nice to me, I'm the nicest guy, honestly. But I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be bullied by strangers on the internet who question. This is not what this channel's for. This is not a challenge. We're here to support each other and encourage each other. if you've come here to be the internet police and measure what I'm doing is whether or not it's qualified or not, you should just leave or keep your thoughts to yourself unless you're asked. It's not productive. It's not conducive to a friendly environment. And what do you think is going to happen? You think I'm going to go, oh, yeah, you're right, an i7's overkill. Let me just return all of these parts. I mean, what? People just don't think. And I think if people paid for the videos, they'd certainly have a right to certain expectations. But when the videos are free, it's kind of a take it or leave it, you know. It's there to help people, and you don't need to stick your nose in my business and wonder whether or not what I'm building is right for my customer. You don't know the customer, and unless you do, there's no way possible you would know. And to think you would or could is extraordinarily arrogant and ignorant. So, but you'll find them very friendly and very nice. Just don't be mean or nasty to me, and I won't be mean or nasty to you. It's you should respect each other. All right, are there any other technical question anybody has? We have 322 people in the live stream watching, and this is an opportunity to ask any technical question. Be your last chance. We're going to be wrapping this up here. Stream's been going on for about, 3.5 hours now. That's good without a blue screen. We're good. DB, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. Casey says, I've installed my SSD. Everything is so fast. Thanks so much for all your content. That's awesome, Casey. Good job. Any advantage using a PS2 port over a USB port? Well, the PS2 port's taking up a resource on your computer. So whether you use it or not, it's still using that resource. Your USB port, on the other hand, you could have numerous things using USB. I prefer to use PS2 if it's available so I don't waste that resource. Roger Gamble says, thanks, Gary. The videos are really informative. It's only weird when I fall asleep watching your 6-hour video and I hear your voice in my sleep. Well, is that a dream or a nightmare? I don't know. Randy Carpenter says, learn a lot from you. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Randy. Adam Ponder says, do you prefer Western Digital or Seagate for mass storage? There are 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They have the same warranty, the same return policies, and about the same speed and ease of return, and about the same failure rate in my experience. So I don't really have a preference. Whatever's cheapest, I suppose. Just got an old PS2 IBM keyboard. What drivers do I need? Keyboards don't use drivers. When you clone the OS to a new drive, then what is your preferred software to use? Acronis. What is the best CAS latency? The lowest you can get. When you suggest laptops to your customers, what brand do you suggest? Anything but HP. I think Dell makes a good laptop, Asus, Acer, Lenovo. If it's a business, Toshiba's. If it's a consumer, not Toshiba. And universally not HP. When you clone a hard drive, do you have to reactivate Windows? Sometimes. Login DOS says, I enjoy your channel. Thank you. Should I update the BIOS periodically? If you want to. Mega Jesse says, hello from Australia. Did you install the OS on the computer you built yesterday? I didn't build a computer yesterday. Is there a difference between M2 and SSD in speed? I have a video called M.2 versus NVMe. I suggest you watch it. It'll explain all that to you. If memtest finishes with 0 errors, will you still trust the RAM? Of course. Yeah. When I install the operating system and all the drivers, if it does all that without any problems, there's nothing wrong with the RAM. It's all good. There was no computer build in the last live stream. Have you ever had a customer uninvited show up on your doorstep demanding you fix their stuff? Maybe about 20 years ago. Might have happened 2 or 3 times. I've changed the process so that doesn't ever happen again. Hype Vision says hello from Barbados. I watch your videos all the time. Keep up the good work, Carrie. Thank you. Was a great stream today. Time to go to bed. Take care. Thank you, Gripin90. Appreciate you tuning in. I can't believe this hasn't blue screened on me. I'm going to flip around a little bit here. Make sure the picture still comes up. Yep, it does. Let's make sure my regular video still shows up. And it does. I'm kind of off to the side looking at the monitor. I'm over here. And let's go back to that other card. That's still working. Can we run the titles? Will that work okay? I guess the titles are back behind this video. I guess it's ordering which video sits on top of the other one based on the listing, if one's above another one. That's interesting. So that would suggest to me, if I go to OBS and I move no, maybe not. I put it to the top. Will it show me the video now? Still not showing me. Which one is covering it? Is it this one? Okay, now we're back, and then we're back there, and then we're back here, back there, back here, back there. Huh, it's working. Interesting. No blue screens. I'm happy. Good. Everything's good. Just checking everything out here. Back to the mage well. Oh, I'm so happy I'm not getting those blue screens anymore. Curious about the Celeron's performance. That thing is a rocket ship. Holy smokes. I mean, you boot that computer up, the one I built a couple days ago, and it's in Windows 10. It had a lot of updates I had to do, though. It was missing the Creators Build update, and then all the updates after that. It was missing antivirus. It had a bunch of malware on it, just like spyware and potentially unwanted programs. I think it found like 659 items, so I cleaned all that up. Then I erased all the temp files and ran, there's a Windows tool to empty out the WinXSS directory, because that can take up a lot of space on a hard drive. And then also the software downloads directory in Windows. This is in the Windows subdirectory. Probably cleared out about 25 gigs. So I still have to do the cable management on it, but it's ready to rock and roll and go back to the customer. As soon as I wire tie the wires, it's done. To add more memory to 16 gigs, is it better to add 4 4s or 2 8s? If you've got 4 sockets and you want to consume all 4 sockets, go to 4 4s. But if you ever want to upgrade to 16 gigs, you're going to have to remove those memory modules, or at least 2 of them. So think about your upgrade path. Didn't know about MemTest. Oh, MemTest has been around a long, long time. Good old tech tool that I've relied on for, I don't know, has it been 2 decades? Certainly been since the 2000s, the early 2000s anyway. All right, guys, I guess that's going to wrap up the stream. Let me go back to the main video here so I can look at you. We're going to wrap this up. I'm going to let MemTest run, and if MemTest completes successfully, I'll put the other memory module, which I've got sitting right over here. I'll go ahead and install that, run MemTest again with all 32 gigs. That's going to even take longer to run. If everything passes, then I've got the green light to go ahead and get Windows 7 installed. And again, I'll have to make some modifications to the Windows install ISO image so that it includes drivers to install from USB on a 200 series chipset, which is what this is. And then there's another driver update for to see the hard drive controller for the NVMe drive, so that Windows will see the drive and install it. That's all that needs to be done. If you're going to build a system like that, you're going to want to keep that Windows 7 install USB that you make, or you're going to have to recreate it again, and it's time consuming, but not rocket science. Anyway, thank you all for watching. For everybody who's contributed to the channel today, thank you so much. The video, if you missed any part of it live, will be made available on the regular YouTube channel. So obviously, if you're watching with a live chat window open, you're watching it live. If you see comments below the video, then it's pre-recorded. And I'm thinking of doing the drunk tech support tomorrow. We talked about that a little bit, where it'll just be for fun. People will ask technical support questions, and I will drink and give you the worst advice you've ever heard that you should not follow. We'll have a big disclaimer on the screen. Don't follow any of this advice. It's for entertainment and humor purposes only. Be a fun Friday night. and just for entertainment. There'll be no educational value to it whatsoever. We'll just do it for fun. So I hope I'll see you all tomorrow. And until then, everybody have a good evening. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you all again very soon. Until then, bye for now.